Hello. I don't think anyone is here yet, which that was kind of my intention, was to beat all of you, and I succeeded, I think. So hopefully this will work. I'm just going to sign today. There's nothing interesting happening. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that are interesting happening, but there's nothing interesting happening in this live stream. So I would say lower your expectations, but no one is watching. So presumably expectations are already quite low. Starting off with a new red pen that may not work very well. So I'm going to have to keep that in mind. It's doing better now. Now I'm just starting to get a little bit worried that I messed up the clue, which certainly wouldn't be out of the ordinary for me. But I'm going to give it 5 more minutes. No, I'm very worried I messed up the clue. I'm going to check. I certainly wouldn't put it past me to mess up the clue. It's in keeping with the rest of who I am. Let's check it. It's such a bad signature. Okay. Here we go. Let's give it a quick check. I just feel like Tuataria would have solved it by now because it's super easy. I made it so easy because I didn't want it to be challenging. But did I mess something up in the process? Very possibly. Well, nope, just nobody's found it. Let me make sure it was the right place. It does. Yeah. I mean, nobody's figured it out yet. It's not hard, but you know, maybe. So I think people might have just figured it out. It looks like there were 2 people in here, at least for a second, although one of those people might have been, both of those people might have been me. Maybe other people get other results when they search for zoo. I don't know. Who knows? I guess it's only been 5 minutes. the whole idea in my mind was that I was going to do this regardless if anyone watched. So now that idea is really being put to the test. This pen is not good. I don't like to say bad things about Sharpies, but these are some bad, this is a bad Sharpie. Okay, we're gonna have to figure this out. I didn't do a good job explaining the clue, I guess, because we're taking long. Okay. Oh, college football. So, okay. So if I go to youtube.com/vlogbrothers, there will be my video. I will click on my video, and it has a nice like to dislike ratio. I'm going to just add the clue here. The clue is zoo. You know, maybe, and then if you search zoo on YouTube, you go to this video. It is the first video, at least on my YouTube results. And then if you go to sort comments by who, are there just, no, my comment is the newest comment. It should not be that hard to get to. I feel like I did not make it that hard. But maybe I did. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to go back to signing because I've now looked and I feel like I did my part. I feel like it's not that hard. You just search zoo for, yeah, I don't know. In like 15 minutes, I'm just going to link to the live stream. Is what I'm going to do. But for now, I'm going to sign. Oh, someone's here. Hello, first person who solved the clue. I didn't think it was that hard. Did I mess it up somehow? Did I pick the wrong time? I don't know, but now I kind of like that it's just you and me here, and I can't read your comments. Feel free to go back to the YouTube channel and offer a spoiler if you're bored. I'm literally just sitting here signing my name, so not that much action. I'm curious to read your comment though, since you seem to have solved it alone. Oh, it's Rosianna, and it was stuck in a spam filter because of the link. Oh no, Rosianna, I messed it up. It's stuck in a spam folder. All right, hold on. Okay. Now I get the how do I get the link to this though? Is my question. How do I get the link to this particular live stream? Oh, I guess it's up there. And it's okay. All right. Let me try this. I'm going to try this. Delete this. Delete that. Say okay. Let's see. Now can you see it, Rosanna, is the question. Okay. So if you go to that zoo video, can you see it now? Why am I so bad at this game? I like that Rosanna just said, please hold. Yes, that worked. Okay. Thank you. Now I know not to post full links ever again. Now I know that's bad, which is good to know. All right. I'm going to sit back, get back into signing. Yes. Sorry about that. Oh, hello. Sorry that I messed up the clue, y'all. It was so easy this week, but I still messed it up. This is just a live stream of me signing my name. You missed the first 12 minutes of it, which was mostly spent with me being confused about why my fairly straightforward clue was taking so long to work. So sorry, my comment, when you make a YouTube comment and it gets stuck in the spam folder, you still see your comment. And so it seems to you that the comment has been made, even though the comment is not publicly available. So that's just something I need to remember in the future. I was trying to make it easier for y'all by just having a direct link for like people who might be new to the scavenger hunt, but that had unintended consequences, as indeed it so often does when you do things that you think are nice. It's something that keeps me up a lot at night. Of course, like, it's not an excuse not to do things that you think are helpful and useful, but I do think that it's appropriate to be worried about unintended consequences, whether you're talking about philanthropy or politics or whatever. So today is obviously a stressful day, at least for me. It might not be a stressful day for you. I'm not trying to put my stuff on you, but it's a very stressful day for me. I am, to quote a Paige Lewis poem, all stopped up with dread and nervous. And this pen is not very good. I'm disappointed to say. That's not even a good enough signature. I got to put a spiral on there to make it worthwhile. I'm super nervous. Probably like the most nervous I've ever been about anything, any sort of like national. Like I've been more nervous when I've had big problems in my own life, or like threats to my family or whatever. But I have never been this nervous about a collective problem, which is the U.S. election. And who knows? Not I. I really hope that we make a move away from both the kind of leadership that Trump has been as a president, and also from the kind of rhetoric that Trump has normalized. I really, really hope. But if I learned anything on November 8th of 2016, it's that I don't know much. So I don't know how it's going to go. I'm sure a lot of y'all are also really nervous, and I know for a lot of you, it's one of the first elections of your lives, or one of the first elections you've been really conscious of, and I can imagine that it's very stressful and hard. So if you have voted, thank you for voting. If there is one person in this live stream who has not voted and is registered and will make a plan to vote, I am sure that everyone else in the live stream will support you in that effort. And then we can at least be like, well, we got one person to vote. And usually I would be like, it doesn't matter. I don't care who you vote for. I just want you to vote. But I do care who you vote for. I think Joe Biden is a decent man. And I think that he is going to be a good president, or he would be a good president if elected. And I think also that he would walk back a lot of the extremely dangerous challenges to democracy and equal protection guaranteed us under the Constitution. And I think he has a better response to COVID. And I think he has a response that is billions of times better when it comes to climate change. There's a lot of things I disagree with Joe Biden about. On a lot of issues, I'm to his left. On some issues, I'm to his right. But I think he is a good person. And I think he will be a good president. So I actually do care who you vote for. I also care who you vote for down the ballot, because the Republican Party, in my opinion, has sold its soul to a really ineffective leader whose strategy of leadership is dangerous because it pits the United States against itself, which is not the country that I want to live in. So, yeah, I think that the Republican Party has given way too much to Trump. And I think it's sad. But I hope that, so I really hope change is coming today. The other thing that's going on is AFC Wimbledon are playing their first game back home at Plough Lane. 31 years. What a testament to what a community can accomplish when they stick together and hold on to hope. 31 years ago, Plough Lane was taken away from them. It was demolished. They were told that it was gone and never coming back. Then they had their club taken away from them and moved to Milton Keynes. And then the English FA, the most powerful body in English football, said that a new club in Wimbledon, or a continuation of professional football in Wimbledon, was not in the wider interests of football in England. And even when the most powerful institution in their sport said you cannot exist, they kept going anyway. They watched their team in the 9th tier of English football. They watched their team in the 8th and the 7th and the 6th and the 5th tier of English football And all the while they sang that beautiful song, Show Me the Way to Plow Lane. I'm tired and I want to go home. I had a football ground 30 years ago and I want one of my own. Wherever I may roam, even Selhurst Park, that effing dump, you will always hear me singing this song, Show Me the Way to Plow Lane. And they have. I mean, it is the most remarkable thing to me. It is such a testament to what hope can do, that 30 years after their stadium was gone, 20 years after their club was stolen away from them, AFC Wimbledon are in a beautiful, modern 9,000 capacity stadium that is owned by its fans. It's incredible. It's incredible. They did it without billionaire benefactors. They did it without huge influxes of money. I mean, their biggest backers are, people like me. And it's just incredible. I'm so, so proud to be associated with that club. So many of my favorite memories as a person, at least from the last 10 years or so, are centered at AFC Wimbledon. Sarah often says that I'm never as happy as I am when I'm with Wimbledon fans, and it's true. It's just it's a magical community. I feel so, so lucky to be a part of it. I'm so grateful for the way they've welcomed our community into theirs, and because your ad dollars paid for parts of the sponsorships that we do with Wimbledon, you are a big part of this story, and I hope you're able to enjoy that. In fact, at 1 p.m., I'm going to stop this live stream, and I'm going to head over to AFC Wimbledon's YouTube channel because they're doing a special 1-hour celebration of the opening of Plow Lane. I mean, it's heartbreaking that something that fans have worked so long for is something that they aren't going to be able to enjoy together in person yet. It really is gut-wrenching. And I know that if you follow Wimbledon at all, you know that in the past few weeks, several fans of the club have passed away. Some after long illnesses, some due to COVID. And, it's heartbreaking to think about the people who gave so much to make this moment possible and don't get to see it. But I really believe that their memory and legacy will live in that place. And generations of Wimbledon fans will be grateful to the people who made it possible for Plow Lane to return to life. So I don't know. It's a happy, sad day. It's a complicated day, I think, on the Wimbledon front. But at 1 p.m., I'm going to go over to the AFC Wimbledon channel and just enjoy the 1-hour live stream celebration before the game starts at 2. And I hope you'll feel free to join us because you have certainly been part of that story. I'm going to finish signing this little stack, and then I'm going to look at the chat for some questions, also just to make sure that everything is going okay. And then I will sign another stack because that's how I manage my anxiety, which is pretty overwhelming at the moment. Okay, done. I mean, they don't have to be perfect, but it's nice if they can be a little bit stacked. Okay. The reason they don't have to be perfect is because I have a machine called Electrojogger that is an absolute game changer. Okay. Okay. Lots of people worried about the election, which is similar to how I feel. John, where's your coat? I took it off. It is not that it's kind of warm downstairs. I don't understand why. Okay. What are you signing sheets for? Okay. And then mostly I think I'm just going to sign. Okay. Rachel asks, can we see the Electrojogger in action? Maybe. Guess it depends on how close I get to the end of the box. What time is it? We got a little bit of time left. Well, I took an accidental picture. That's just a feature I love about the iPhone. Yeah, so what am I signing? I'm signing copies of, I'm signing sheets of paper. These sheets of paper will later be bound into copies of my new book, which is called The Anthropocene Reviewed. And it is a book of nonfiction essays. So it is very different from anything I've published before. And I am signing the first printing of that book. Now, you may be wondering, do I need to sign the first printing? No, I don't need to sign the first printing on any level. I don't actually think it will increase sales that much, for starters, but also, the Anthropocene Reviewed book is intended for people who will like it, not, I guess, like the widest possible audience. So I'm going to be promoting the book quite differently from how I promoted Turtles All the Way Down, or certainly The Fault in Our Stars. So I'll be, I will be promoting it. I'm proud of the book. I hope people like it. I want it, want it to find readers. Also, on a purely financial level, it helps us meet our promises to Partners in Health Sierra Leone. So that's important. But I also don't want to, I don't really want to publish in that old way anymore, where I go on a big long book tour. I mean, I know that a big long book tour is out of the question anyway, but where I, throw my whole self into promotion for 6 or 8 weeks and emerge from the experience feeling emotionally and physically exhausted. And also, the other thing about that is that you sell more books that way, but I think in the end, like if people want to read this book, that they'll find it and they'll know about it from the podcast, or they'll know about it from following our work. And I don't really want it to travel that far outside of those worlds, to be honest with you. Traveling outside of those worlds is not that fun for me. I mean, it's nice to have people, obviously it's nice to have your work do well and sell widely or whatever, but it's just kind of not what I want at this point in my life. Like I want to make stuff for the people who like the stuff. So if you like the Anthropocene Reviewed, feel free to get the book. Don't feel obligated to, though. I mean, most of the book is available for free on your podcast app listening of choice. Podcast listening app of your choice. But that's why I'm signing. I wanted to sign the whole first printing because I feel like the relationship I have with the audience of that podcast is very special to me, and this is a little tiny way of trying to say thank you. And also because I just think I think it's nice when I open up a book and discover that it was signed by the author. Like, it always makes me kind of happy. Autographs don't mean anything, especially not like autographs as unbeautiful as mine, but I don't know, it still gives me a little jolt of happiness, and it's just something I wanted to do for the book and its readers. I've tried to interrogate it deeply, and I never really come to a place that I'm happy with in that interrogation. So, yeah. I can't remember the other questions. What do I think will happen to the Wimbledon game today? We've already won that game. We won that game by getting back to Plough Lane. So I hope we win. I hope we score more goals than they do, but the result isn't that important to me. I mean, the only reason the result is at all important to me is that it'd be cool to start out, in our new home with a win. But also, AFC Wimbledon are showing some early signs this season of maybe being, I don't want to say good, because that is certainly an exaggeration, but maybe. So for the last 4 years, Wimbledon have very, very nearly been relegated down to League Two, the 4th tier of English soccer. For those of you who don't know how this works, in English soccer and in most such sporting leagues, the best teams in a division are promoted up a division, and the worst teams in a division are demoted down a division. So AFC Wimbledon, currently playing in the 3rd tier of English soccer, is theoretically only 2 great seasons away from being in the Premier League and playing teams like, Did it come back? It's back. Okay. Yeah, so we had a power outage just now, but it actually came back quite quickly, which is great. We've had about 15 power outages in the last 2 days. I'm not sure what's happening. It's been windy, but that isn't usually a cause for power outages. So, yeah, let me make sure it's still back. We're back. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, so we've had, the U.S. electrical grid is very bad anyway. We just don't have the most robust grid. Indianapolis has could definitely use some updates to its grid. But yeah, the power outages here have been quite consistent and a little worrisome. A lot of surges, a lot of random outages. So anyway, if that keeps happening, eventually the live stream might end, but maybe not. I should just keep my phone by me. Okay. Everybody's talking about what we're going to do for the election. I'm quite a superstitious person. So the main thing I'm going to try to do is everything I didn't do in 2016. Yeah. I just want to say again, in case somebody was a late arrival, that if you are an American adult and you are either registered to vote or you live in a state like California or Montana or Colorado where there is same-day voter registration and you have not voted, you can make a plan to vote right now and you can get it done, and the people in the chat will support you 100% in that effort, and we will all feel a little bit better knowing that there was one more voter. So just throwing that out there, just in case. One of my biggest life regrets, I have many. I don't believe these people who are like, I don't have regrets. I'm so happy that with the life I have now, and I could never have had that life if I hadn't been through everything I've been through. I understand the idea there, but like, it's kind of offensive to me because like people died, you know, like you went through like, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't work for me because when I think about that, I think about like, well, I regret the times that my friends died, you know, I regret that a lot. But I also regret not voting in the 2000 US presidential election. I also regret that a lot. It was a huge, huge mistake by me. And I made that mistake because I bought in for two reasons. First, I bought into the great voter suppression tactic that's been used for many decades in American politics, which is both major parties are the same, so it doesn't matter who you vote for. So that was the first reason, because like it's easy to tell someone who's already disinclined to do something extra that they shouldn't do it because it won't matter anyway. That is a vicious lie, though. Anyone who's lived through the last 4 years of American history knows that it would have been different in many ways. We would have 3 different Supreme Court justices, so 1/3 of the Supreme Court would be different. We would still be in the Paris Climate Agreement. We would still have any kind of climate change plan, which right now under President Trump we don't have at all. And the COVID-19 outbreak that is now where America has been the epicenter almost from the beginning. I mean, at least since April, would be very different. It would still be catastrophic. I don't think there's any getting around that. I don't think that we were like a different president away from having a South Korea kind of response to COVID. But I do think that we were a different president away from having tens of thousands of fewer deaths from COVID so far. There have been a lot of excess deaths in the United States compared to many other countries that are traceable to our lack of a coherent federal response to the crisis. So I bought into that lie, and that's a huge regret of mine. And then the other reason I didn't vote was because like the whole idea of it kind of stressed me out, and I sort of didn't know what to do, and I was kind of embarrassed, and it was something I'd never done before. And if you're in that situation, talk to chat or text someone you know and love and say, listen, I'm freaking out, but it seems like I can vote today because I live in Montana. I can do same-day registration and vote. I just need to know, I just kind of need you to be my accountability buddy in this process and help me get through it. And that person will totally help you. They will totally help you. So yeah, I know that probably there's nobody in chat who hasn't voted and is open to it, but yeah, I'm just worried, man. Never been this worried before about the country where I live. It's become, you know, when you study world history, you see a lot of compare and contrast moments with contemporary life. And a lot of those compare and contrast moments are oversimplified and I think can only be of limited use. Like, I don't really buy the argument that we study history so that we can avoid repeating it. But when you go down a path of us versus theming within a community, even unto like refusing federal disaster aid to certain states because you think that those states are not like your states because they didn't vote for you for president. When you head down that road, it can be pretty hard to walk back from that. I am confident that one way or another we will walk back from it, but I've certainly never in my lifetime experienced anything like this or felt anything like this level of anxiety or dread. So I know a lot of you feel the same way. It's a hard thing to live with. It is also temporary. I try to remind myself of that. Literally everything ends, or at least everything that humans can observe ends. And so this will also end. But yeah, it's this is the weirdest time I've lived through. And I now have a somewhat better understanding of the ancient curse. May you live in interesting times. All right, I'm just going to shut up and sign for a little bit. But the other thing, I mean, I'm just thinking about this because I worry sometimes that I do this, and it's really counterproductive. Even though it feels good in the moment, like so much activity on the internet that feels good in the moment, it's really counterproductive, right? Like who hasn't released a tweet or Facebook post like full of righteous indignation that feels good for the first like 5 seconds? But then just overall brings negativity into your life and you're not sure what it accomplished. The other thing is that like, I don't know that, well, shaming people about their political beliefs doesn't work. Like there's a lot of studies about this, about how, what actually persuades people to think differently. And this is why like, so for example, like if you show someone a tax plan that raises taxes, people on the conservative side of things will sometimes argue, well, this tax plan will actually pay for itself because although we're raising taxes, it will lead to increased economic activity that will increase by so much that the tax base will grow by so much that even with a lower tax rate, we will collect more taxes because the economy will be so much bigger. And if you show people countervailing evidence that like, actually, that's not true. It's never been true. It's never happened once in the entire history of increasing taxes in the decreasing taxes in the United States. And then you ask people what they believe. They actually believe on average more firmly in their original belief. And that is not a problem that is limited to the right. I gotta make sure this isn't Rosianna telling you to shut up about politics. It's not. This isn't a problem limited to the right, because if you show people on the left evidence that raising taxes negatively impacts the overall amount of economic activity and the overall size of the economy, they also become more convinced of their belief that raising taxes does not have a negative impact on economic growth. So this is something I've really struggled with. And I think in 2016, we definitely missed the mark. It's something that haunts me, that I think about all the time. I mean, of the things that haunt me, one is that I encouraged a lot of people to get on Twitter thinking that it was a net positive for human experience. That was a mistake. Two, and also I just kind of like generally like benefited from the social internet to a degree that almost no one else did. And I feel a little bad about that. Well, I feel quite conflicted about that because I think that the social internet as currently architectured is bad. That's the end of the sentence. But yeah, so I think when like Hank and I tried to talk about the election in 2016, we did it in exactly the wrong way, and that bothers me. I don't know the right way, and like I don't know the right way to get people. I think there is good research about what the right ways are, but a lot of it focuses on in-person conversations with people you trust, and that's so I think if we can have an impact, or the decision that I've come to is that if we can have an impact, it's an impact that we have like not by making one video that says vote for this candidate or that candidate. It's an impact that we try to have all year round by making an argument for a set of values, but that are based on empathy and inclusion and hope, and then hoping that some people have bought into the vision for those values over time, and that is what maybe changes the way that they think about politics. Because I don't think that people very often get their minds changed by being shamed. I know that like sometimes in my own life, when I've had moments when I really needed to learn something difficult, it did help me to get yelled at and to be called out. It made me feel very defensive in the short term, but in the medium term, it helped me to understand stuff I didn't know about the world, or places where I had blind spots. And so I don't think any of this stuff is simple, and I don't have any like simple conclusions about it. I just I just don't know exactly how to I guess I just don't know exactly how to use the internet, which is a problem I've been having since like, I would say like June 1st, 2014. Before that, I felt like I really knew how to use the internet. And now I don't. I feel like, but maybe that's okay. Maybe uncertainty has some upsides, or at least it better. That is a terrible signature. Hopefully it's saved by this spiral. I'm sorry to whoever gets that one. I got to throw this pen away after this one. This pen, I don't like to criticize Sharpie, not least because they sponsor me. But occasionally, I would say like 1 out of every 50 to 100 pens kind of only works. So to really make the signing work, you have to be able to twist the Sharpie as you sign. So you make like little tiny motions in between each signature, and that allows the point to stay sharp, even so that it doesn't like, because if you just sign from one direction, holding the pen one way the whole time, the marker will inevitably get sort of distorted, and it'll sort of like push in the direction that you're signing. So you've got to be able to move it around, and occasionally you'll get one with like some dry spots, and so that makes it really hard to move it around. And that's what's happened here. And I think the reason there are dry spots on this one is that it's not actually a new marker. It was like one of Henry's markers that he took to summer camp with him, that he was going to do projects with, that he never actually used, or at least didn't use much. So I think that's what, not to throw my kid under the bus, but I think that's the issue. All right, I'm going to, the stack is getting low and it starts to hurt my wrist when it's low. So I'm going to stop and look at questions again. So, and I'm going to throw that marker away, which feels really good. Okay. 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 What was the pizza miss question? I don't know that I saw the pizza miss question. Oh, about pizza miss merch? That's an interesting question that I don't fully know the answer to, but I'm not going to let that stop me from answering it. Yeah, so Pizza Miss had a very good year this year, much better. Much better than it has in the past. In fact, it was almost twice as much. It was like 75% more than any year in the past, despite the I don't have to get too deeply into. That's a good looking pen. I don't have to get too deeply into why people are freaked out, and why a lot of people are obviously going through tremendously difficult economic times, and so we were surprised that Pizza Miss did so well. I think some of it was the excellent designs. Kimmy Reinhardt, who I saw is in chat, did a great Pizza John Circles design. The 3 John Moon did very well despite being hideous. The Pizza John mask did very well despite being hideous. I mean, you got to at some point accept that like hideousness is not it's not a bug of Pizza Miss, it's a feature. Although I thought the circle shirt was really pretty, and some of the other designs were really good too. So it was a combination of basically of everything doing better than it has in the past. And so, it was really good because it meant $60,000, I think, in royalties go to charity. And then we get there's even a little bit more that'll go to charity from owners distribution. So like, it was a very positive Pizza Miss. And we needed it because DFTBA was closed down for a while, which was inconvenient. And then also just the disruptions and expenses of COVID have been challenging, like I think they have been for most companies. But DFTBA is a different kind of company because 94% of its profit goes to charity, and those charities are counting on us more than ever. So we are really grateful to still be able to do that work. And Hank is a good leader, really good leader in a time of crisis. And I am super, super grateful to him. He's just an amazing person. It's incredible what he can accomplish. And we're going to be launching some new stuff hopefully soon that will mark an expansion of our efforts to raise money for charity, and also an expansion of our efforts to, I guess, make the case to consumers that maybe there is another way. Like maybe the way where like every time you buy a cup of coffee, it makes a billionaire richer is not the only way that we can be purchasing consumer goods. Maybe. That's like the broad idea. You guys are going to get to see me use my secret door because I have to go pee, but I'll be right back. I'll be right back. I just have to pee real quick. I'll be right back. See, it's a secret door. You just open it. It's not that hard. I'm back. So the secret door is electric. There is an electric way to make it work, but I had to break the electric way to make it work because during one of the aforementioned power outages, I ended up stuck in here for an hour. And then eventually I was like, I've got to use the emergency pull. And then the moment I used the emergency pull to like turn off all the electrical stuff, the power immediately came back on. I realize in telling you the story of this problem that I have just defined the term first world problem at a whole new level. So I know there were other questions, but I can't remember what they were. And also, I think that probably you guys just want me to sit here in silence and sign anyway. Someone asked if Alaska for Looking could be a project for Awesome Perk. I would really like that. I think there might be some complexities involved with my publisher because they have to license any version of the book, but I also think I can probably talk them into doing that because, well, they owe me some favors. It goes both ways. I also owe them some favors, but they owe me some favors. And then I wouldn't really feel right about doing it unless I could get in touch somehow with the person who made it for me, because it was their idea, and I would feel bad doing it without their permission, but I have no idea how to get in touch with them. So I think it'd be a great project for Awesome Perk. And I have to say, like I said in the video, I haven't read Looking for Alaska in over 16 years, and I have no idea how good it was. But Alaska for Looking is quite interesting. It's quite fun to read. Or like, I don't know if it's technically reading, it's more looking at, but it's sort of beautiful in a strange way. There were a few things about Looking for Alaska that like I had built up in my mind in the last 16 years just because of the volume of reader response. Like, a weird fact about that book and my relationship with it is that Looking for Alaska is one of the 10 most banned and challenged books in America, at least in the last decade. And that's weird. So like when I was looking at Alaska for Looking, I like went to look for F-bombs, and there were like 12 of them, which is, like 2/10,000ths of the novel. And I was like, geez, I mean, I feel like there's way more. There probably are more F-bombs in The Fault in Our Stars. It's just nobody got upset about it because, well, I think there are a few reasons. We don't necessarily need to get into them. But, and then I was like, oh, but there is some like explicit but aggressively unerotic romantic encounters, and so I like looked for the words involved in those, and even there was like 1 or 2 words. I was like, gosh almighty, people can get themselves pretty upset over a couple of words or like half a page in a 250-page novel. And I guess I understand it. I mean, well, I don't really understand it. I think that I don't think that it should be up to parents to decide what kids read in high school English classes. Like, we hire experts to make those decisions because they are better at making those decisions than we are. Like, that's my feeling about it. We teachers should be empowered to teach what they want to teach, as long as they can teach it well and share important concepts. And I don't think that anybody who read Looking for Alaska was, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they were. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? I can't speak to reader experience, I guess. But I was just kind of surprised because in my head I built it up as like quite a bawdy book, and in some ways like, that it had a level of frankness about adolescent life that I never attempted to capture. Again, not so much because I was worried about being banned or challenged, which doesn't really bother me, but more because I felt like I had done it, and also I felt like there were lots of YA novels doing it very well. Writing about sex and sexuality really, really well and with great nuance. And so I tried to do things that I wasn't seeing as much of, I guess. But it's also a very long time ago. I mean, it was just such a different world. My world was so different, but like also the world was so different, George W. Bush had just been elected president, or just been reelected president, I guess. I was 26. I mean, looking back now on my 26-year-old self, like that person seems like a kid you know, just as I hope I will always be able to look back on my life 15 years later and be like, oh, well, I've learned some things that kid didn't know. All right, I'm going to check questions again and refill the stack here. So if you want to ask a question, now's a great time, or just make a comment, or not, that's also good. Just chill. Listen to the repetitive sound of Sharpie on paper. I'm really lucky that I don't find this sound grating because I have a very strong, very almost unmanageable reaction to textures and sounds that I find grating. It's really psychically painful. But this sound, I don't mind. So that's good. I guess if I did mind it, I probably wouldn't have gotten in the business of signing my name 500,000 times. All right. Now we're going to stack these up. Stack, stack, stack. It's pretty good. It's 12:27. I got time to do one more. Okay. Oh, everybody's saying we're here because we're here. Thanks. That made me happy. How to convince a white friend that third world is a racist term and that the white savior complex is real? Okay. That's a good question. What would you say to people who call the female characters in your books one-dimensional and stereotypical? That's a good question. Okay. All right. And maybe something about which essays you're not including in the book. Now, I'm probably not going to remember most of those questions if I know myself, but I will do my best. I've already forgotten the first question. What was the first question? It was quite good. Oh, about the third world. Yeah, so I've been talking earlier about how I don't know how to I don't know much about what works in terms of persuasion. So I don't know how to convince people that third world is a racist term, or that many attempts by, including very well-meaning attempts by people to help in impoverished countries are neo-colonial in the sense that they do not center the power and the agency on the people who are directly affected by the work, and instead center the power and agency around usually white people living in usually Europe or the United States. There's a lot of problems with doing philanthropy that way. The biggest problem for me is that it's ineffective. It doesn't work because long-term problems require long-term solutions, and almost always the kind of proposals that are made by individuals who think that they're going to be able to become some like heroic character in the very complex story of global poverty, a lot of times they use what are known in global health circles as vertical interventions, like drop in and leave behind a new generator, or leave behind a new ambulance, or give a fleet of ambulances, because people not being able to get from primary care centers to the hospital is a problem. And that is a real problem. But if you don't center your philanthropy in listening, and you try to hold on to the agency and the control yourself, you're never going to find out that the reason it's a problem is because of access to gasoline. And the reason it's a problem is because axles on those ambulances break on the roads in Sierra Leone's Kono district. And so you can give all the ambulances you want, but they're going to be stripped for parts after 6 months when the axle breaks and there is nothing to replace it. As far as the term third world, I mean, the reason that, that term is a relic of the Cold War, and it is now used like I'm a big fan of this guy Hayes Brown, who used to work for BuzzFeed and now I think works for NBC. And Hayes said recently that you shouldn't be allowed to use the term third world unless you can define second world. And I mean, for me growing up, like that was certainly the case. Like I didn't know that this was a Cold War term that referred to whether or not economies were capitalist or Marxist. And then the third world was were the group of economies that the capitalists and the Marxists were fighting to win over. And if I had understood that, I would have understood why the term was so problematic. But now it's become even more divorced from that. And third world country is just a way of saying impoverished country, but a way like what I like, or what when I've heard people use the term impoverished country, who live in like say a country like Sierra Leone, what they like about that term is that the word impoverished, as opposed to like a word like poverty-stricken or poor, the word impoverished contains within it the fundamental fact of why Sierra Leone is so poor, which is because it was impoverished. It was impoverished by colonialism. It was impoverished by centuries of the transatlantic European slave trade, and it was impoverished by resource extraction before and after independence. So, I mean, I know that this is, I know that there are lots of people who just, they kind of want to have their beliefs about colonialism, and I don't know that I can do much about it. But when I hear that colonialism was a mixed bag, or that colonialism brought a lot of development, or colonialism helped a lot of people, what I think very clearly every time is that in 1950, after 150 years of British colonial rule, life expectancy in Sierra Leone was 26, which was likely lower than it had been 500, or for that matter, 5,000 years earlier. It's just not true that colonialism did anything but impoverish countries like Sierra Leone and then leave them in a situation where independence was always going to be fraught and complicated, as it is for any new nation, but especially a new nation that has been so thoroughly robbed of so much of its wealth and so many of its people through, especially obviously through slavery, but also through other methods of in colonialism. So I don't know how you convince your friend of any of that, but that's how I see it. As for, how we try to guard against the ways that well-meaning philanthropy can do harm, it's something we think a lot about. That's why we try to ground our work in listening. It's why we try to work closely with organizations that have a long and very strong history of putting the agency and the control where it needs to be. The Maternal Center of Excellence that our community is working to fundraise for is a long-term project to address the long-term crisis of maternal mortality and child mortality in Sierra Leone. But it is not like Nerdfighteria builds a hospital. That is the wrong way to think of it. This is our community helping Partners in Health and the Sierra Leonean Ministry of Health build, staff, supply, and maintain a hospital. The control of the hospital is with the Sierra Leonean government. It is owned by the people of Sierra Leone through their government, and Partners in Health is there because they have a lot of expertise and a lot of trust built up with not just with the government, but also with people in Kona. And so that's why they're an important part of how it happens and how it's going to be maintained over a long term. So that's not perfect, and we make mistakes, and we need to watch out for them. And a big part of that is listening very closely to the people we're working with, listening very closely to the people that we're hoping to support, and taking what they say seriously, and also understanding that philanthropy is not some one-way street. I really dislike that philanthropy gets imagined that way as rich people or rich countries helping out poor countries. But that's not what it should be at all. It should be an exchange of expertises, an exchange of resources and expertises. If we had taken lessons from Sierra Leone about contact tracing and about how to do contact tracing on a massive scale by very quickly hiring up a huge number of community health workers, we would not be where we are with COVID. And in fact, I know this because in Massachusetts, they did hire Partners in Health to do contact tracing, and they have today 1/5 the cases and 1/5 the fatalities of Indiana, which is a state of a very similar population, and a state that has a lot, Massachusetts has a lot more density, which is a risk factor for COVID-19. So I think that I think that we need to see this stuff as a two-way street where we learn from each other and we share with each other what we can share, the same way that we would with any neighbor or with anyone in our community. And that, I find that way of thinking about it to be ultimately a lot more productive than this is about me, they should name the hospital after me, I'm the big reason for the hospital. I don't find that as compelling, I have to say. The second question was about how do I respond to people saying that the female characters in my book are one-dimensional? I mostly hear that in reference to Looking for Alaska in Paper Towns. And I think that, you know, the perspective of the narrator is very different from the perspective of the author. And especially in the first half of the book of Looking for Alaska, Miles does see Alaska through these lenses that he's been taught to look at girls through. He romanticizes her. He sees her as more than human. He sees her as, and she, I think, or I hope anyway, is constantly trying to insist upon her humanity, her complex, multitudinous humanity, and Miles is consistently not seeing it. If I did my job in that book, the reader sees that the way that Miles sees Alaska is completely insufficient, and eventually realizes that this is a big part of what leads to the great catastrophe in the story. That Miles, precisely because he doesn't see Alaska as a person, he fails her in the most wrenching way possible, and then in the second half of the book has to try to learn to see her as a person while also trying to grapple with the real responsibility that he has to take on as a result of his failure to understand his friend as a person. And then in I felt like, you know, to some extent people got that when reading Looking for Alaska, but to some extent just because of the arc of the book and the themes of it and everything, that some people walked away from it thinking, you know, Alaska was this like beautiful mystery, instead of thinking of it as what I wanted it to be, which was Alaska was a human being who was wrongly imagined by this narrator as a beautiful mystery, and as a result, there's a catastrophe. That's how I thought of it. So in Paper Towns, I tried to make all of that like far more explicit, you know. There's an obvious, in Paper Towns, there's a obvious and constant tension between the way that Colin worships, romanticizes Margot, and that is precisely what makes him fail to understand what he's thinking of as the mystery at the center of the book. So like, I wanted to have the whole book turn around the fact that this kid, because he cannot imagine this girl with any complexity, cannot like acknowledge the ways that she is, that her life and feelings are as multitudinous as his own, he cannot see her, and so he cannot find her. And it is only once he realizes, and I think I like made this very literal by like saying like, Margot was not a shiny, pretty thing. Margot was not a mystery to be solved. Margot was a girl or a kid or something. I don't remember what the line is, but like, so to me, like, that's what the book is about. It's about this like malicious lie of the manic pixie dream girl. And some readers have taken away from that, that I was like trying to celebrate the manic pixie dream girl. And I don't know, I mean, books belong to their readers, and I don't know if I succeeded or failed in the responsibility that I had to that work. But if it reads like a celebration of boys romanticizing girls, then I have failed. And if it reads like when Colin and Margot finally reconnect, if it feels like Margot's like, what the frick, man? Like, what the hell? Then I've succeeded, because the whole thing for me is that it's not until the very end of the book that he's able to see her. I mean, he starts to be able to see her as a person, and that helps him, you know, on the journey toward her, but he's not really able to see her as a person until the very end of the book, once he's actually freaking listened to her. And so that's what the book's about to me. That's what I was trying to do. And so if the character seems one-dimensional, I wanted the character to seem one-dimensional through Colin's eyes, but I wanted you as the reader to understand that Margot was much more and much more complex than Colin was initially kind of giving her credit for. Is his name Colin? It's not. It's Quentin. Colin is a character in a different book. Whatever. I wrote all of these books like 12 years ago. It's very hard for me to remember. But yeah, that's what I wanted. And then, like, if Hazel Grace Lancaster is one-dimensional in The Fault in Our Stars, or if Aza is in Turtles All the Way Down, then I've completely failed. Because like once I'd written Alaska and Paper Towns, I wanted to try to turn my attention more to, I don't know, writing different kinds of stories from different kinds of perspectives. And so in Turtles All the Way Down, you know, Aza is not seen through anyone's eyes except for herself, and she essentializes herself a lot. But I hope anyway, that it's clear to the reader that the ways that she's essentializing herself are not the full picture. And it's a little easier maybe to do that because you're not relying on sort of secondhand narration or observation. She's able to you're able to be inside of her head. And hopefully the same is true in The Fault in Our Stars. But I mostly hear that about Alaska and Paper Towns. And I get it because I don't know the extent to which I succeeded in doing what I was trying to do. And if I didn't succeed, I feel really bad about it. I know that for some people it worked, and I'm grateful for that. And for other people it didn't work, and I'm sorry for that, I guess. There was a third question that was also very good, and I don't remember it. And now, we're close to running out of time because at 1 o'clock, and I hope you'll consider joining me if you're free. But at 1 o'clock, I'm going to go watch AFC Wimbledon's on AFC Wimbledon's YouTube channel. They're doing like a live stream celebration of the opening of Plough Lane because, of course, we can't all be there in person, and so it's a way to celebrate that stuff. Oh man, I wish I remembered that third question. Then I just talked about those first two questions for so freaking long. I remembered it. It was what essays are not going to be in the book and why. Well, like probably the most beloved essay that's not going to be in the book, I don't think, is the Kauai O'o one, because so much of what makes that work is the sound of the Kauai O'o itself. And I think without that sound, you lose so much that it's maybe not worth it. I think the Kauai O'o one will be in the audiobook. So yeah. And then, you know, there were a lot of them that I just didn't like that much. Like, I don't like the one about prom that much. I did hear from my high school prom date after that episode went out, and she was very nice. She had similar memories, which was good. That was lovely to hear from her, but I just don't think it needs to be in the book. And like there's a bunch I feel that way about, you know, like there were several episodes that I felt like were too like clean, you know, like there's this thing that I have a weakness for, and I'm conscious of the fact that I have a weakness for it. I mean, I have a lot of God knows I have a lot of weaknesses as a writer, and they show up. But there's a thing that I do where I like set up a scene, and then I like pay it off in a very kind of like complete, simple, totally predictable way. And I just don't like those episodes as much. Like the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment is one example of that. I am very interested in the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment because it has been used to justify so many bad ideas. But I just don't know if it needs to be in the book because, like the essay I wrote about it, it's just not as good as it should be. And then I tried to make it better, and I couldn't. So there's a bunch like that, and then there are some that I like that it just you got to make choices. I don't want the book to be 600 pages long, and I want it to be a book that people can read on the move if they want to, and there are some that just don't feel essential. So, but I will say that a lot of the ones that initially I left out of the book, I now want to keep in, and there are some that I thought initially made a lot of sense in the book that I now want to take out. And the other thing, I guess the other part of the consideration for me is that I write about real people in these essays, and that also means that I have to have conversations with those real people where I say, like, hey, do you want this to be in a book? Are you sure? And in the case of my kids, I'm not sure they can be sure. Like, I'm not sure they really know what it means. They're both bright, super thoughtful people, but I don't know. Yeah. So there may be some stuff about my kids that I cut out of the book because I just want them to be able to have their own lives. And even though like the stuff about my kids is largely, when I write about my kids or talk about my kids on YouTube, I always try to do so in a way that's extremely generic, that like never says anything or much about them as individuals, like what their personalities are like, any, problems they have, and, like that's very important to me, that like my kids get to have a private life, and get to make their own choices about what parts of them are known outside of their immediate circles. And so that's the other big consideration in thinking about which episodes I'm okay with, because it's a little different. Like, I mean, I ask their permission whenever I would talk about them in the podcast, but like it's just a little different because a podcast, it just doesn't, it feels different to me. It doesn't feel as permanent. So not that books are permanent, nothing is, except AFC Wimbledon's new stadium at Plough Lane, of course. All right. I hope I answered all of those questions okay, and that I didn't get too defensive. I know sometimes when I talk about my books, I get a little too defensive, so I apologize if I did. But yeah, it was fun. I appreciate all of those questions really a lot, and it's just fun to talk with you. It's a nice different way of signing. And I think, I signed like 1,500 sheets. Why am I so much faster when you're here than when you're not? Is that even right? It is. Why am I so much faster when you're here than when you're not? I don't know, but I am. It's amazing. I feel like if I need to crank out like 30,000 at the end, I can just do one long live stream. Okay. Thank you all for being here. And I really appreciate it. So yeah, go over to you. If you're interested, go over to AFC Wimbledon's YouTube channel to see their live show. It's going to be great. And then the game is at 2:00 on the iFollow app on your phone. It's not the easiest way to watch football, unfortunately. I do want to show you the Electro Jogger, though. This is the coolest thing. This is the coolest thing. It was given by my friend Jared in North Carolina. There it is. Ready? Hold on, I'm going to turn the light so you really get to see the full magic of the Electro Jogger. I'm going to bring you in a little closer. Okay, so this is the Electro Jogger. It's from like 1956. You take pages, you put them in the Electro Jogger, you hit go, you kind of do this, and then look at that. Look at the quality of that stack of papers. And you just do that like 300 or 400 sheets at a time. Just kind of And this thing, I mean, that's that like you could bind that into a book. That's the magic of the Electro Jogger. No matter how disorganized my piles are, the Electro Jogger makes everything line up perfectly in the boxes that I have to send back to Penguin. And also, it's just an extremely satisfying machine. So, you know, 2.1 cheers for the Industrial Revolution is what I'm trying to say, friends. All right. Thank you again for being here. And I'll see maybe some of you over at the AFC Wimbledon live stream on their YouTube channel. And the rest of y'all, I hope you have an okay election day. I'm wishing you peace and light. All right. Take care. Bye.